how's it going, universe? Welcome to another episode of Zoobox Goes to the Movies. This week, this episode, we're going to be talking about the 1957 film 12 Angry Men.
On the point of that knife, a man's life is at stake.
I'm just saying it's possible.
And I say it's not possible. I want you to watch this because I don't want to have to do it again. I'll make myself about 6 or 7 inches shorter, okay?
It's about right, maybe a little more.
Okay, a little more.
Look out.
12 Angry Men is directed by Sydney Lumet, story by Reginald Rose, screenplay by Reginald Rose and Sydney Lumet. It stars Henry Fonda, Lee J. Cobb, John Fiedler, Martin Balsam, E.G. Marshall, Jack Klugman, Edward Binns, Jack Warden, Ed Begley, Joseph Sweeney, George Voskovec, Robert Weber, Rudy Bond, and others. The logline plot synopsis is: a jury holdout attempts to prevent a miscarriage of justice by forcing his colleagues to reconsider the evidence.
What's the matter with you guys? You're letting them slip through our fingers.
Slip through our fingers? Are you his executioner?
You cut it.
Ever since you walked into this room, you've been acting like a self-appointed public avenger.
Shut up.
You're a sadist.
12 men turned into 12 clawing animals.
To help me talk about it, I got my new buddy here, Jeremy of Jeremobi. How's it going, man?
It's going well, Shaun. How are you doing, man?
Oh, bro, I'm doing excellent. And I've been, you actually suggested this movie, and it was one of those things I was like, oh yeah, why haven't I ever thought about to talk about 12 Angry Men, you know? So what made you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, like, I was in a similar sort of situation where I hadn't seen this film, not since, I want to say, like, early high school, and just recently, very recently, rewatched it many years later and was very much taken aback, I think, with fresher eyes, with just what a... You know, it's funny, like, this film is, like, lauded as one of the all-time greats in American cinema. It is on, you know, just about every top 10, top 100 list, you know, top courtroom dramas, if not the, like, go-to courtroom drama. Or, yeah, just Criterion Collection, of course, has this under its wing now, too. Mm-hmm. A nice 2K transfer with all the bonus material that you could ever ask for. But even with all that said, it's still such a great movie. And rewatching it, I was just blown away. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where it's like, you know, over the past year, the pandemic year, I went back and filled in a lot of gaps, like things I hadn't really watched before. And this is one of those movies that kind of pushed the medium forward. It's so solidly made. It takes every lesson that was learned in film history up to that point to make this like masterclass chamber piece. Yeah, it's such a tight movie. Like, it's so, every single aspect of it is just like perfectly executed. You know what I mean? Like on a technical level. And every time I watch it, because it had been a while since I'd actually sat down and watched 12 Angry Men. Every time I watch it, I discover like a new thing to respect and appreciate about the movie, you know? Especially this time, I was so taken with like just the masterful camera work. I mean, the cinematography on this thing is out of this world. It's like so next level. Just the way that, because, you know, you got to keep almost one room. There's a room, there's the deliberation room, and there's the bathroom. And like keeping that visually interesting, making it cinematic. Also, though, making you the 13th juror. which is something I was really, really taken with. I was like, oh my God. I was like, you feel like you're walking around the room with the guys and you're sitting there with them, and how it actually pays a lot of attention to reaction shots rather than whoever's speaking. So many things that kind of invite you as the viewer to be a juror and put yourself in their shoes and actually trying to work through the case, but also work through what each individual character, each individual juror is kind of thinking and going through, and how their biases are shifting and where they're coming from.
I kept putting myself in the kid's place. I'd have asked for another lawyer, I think. I mean, if I was on trial for my life, I'd want my lawyer to tear the prosecution witnesses to shreds, or at least try to. Look, there was one alleged eyewitness to this killing. Someone else claims he heard the killing, saw the boy run out afterwards, and there was a lot of circumstantial evidence. But actually, those two witnesses were the entire case for the prosecution. Supposing they're wrong.
What do you mean, supposing they're wrong? What's the point of having witnesses at all?
Could they be wrong?
What are you trying to say? Those people sat on the stand under oath.
They're only people. People make mistakes. Could they be wrong?
Well, no, I don't think so.
You know so.
Oh, come on, nobody can know a thing like that. This isn't an exact science.
That's right, it isn't.
And that's like so much of what I took away from it this time, watching it. But I want to know, what are your like general impressions of the movie?
You summed up a lot of it there, though. But yeah, it is probably one of the ultimate just mise-en-scène type of films. You bring up the camera work, for instance, which for me, I think where the strengths lie in the camera work are kind of different than you would get from your more spectacle-heavy kind of film, because this is a very laid-back DP working here. He's actually, as you say, puts you in the room with these characters as a 13th juror, because you really do feel like you're having a dialogue with these guys in the way that it's shot. There's a lot of times where it does a longer take or a shorter take, or it'll cut to people's blind reactions, left and right. And then you also notice over the course of the film that the camera starts off kind of like domineering and looking down at all these characters, and then over the course of this 90-minute runtime or so, it reaches like almost like an eye level, if not a little slightly below what these characters were from where they started. And I thought that was kind of an interesting. If you fast forward through the whole movie, it's like you really do kind of notice that
you can watch it float down. And part of the reason why they did that was to make the room feel, was to manipulate the space in the room.
Yeah.
So like when the movie starts, it's like more of a bird's eye view. So everybody looks spread out. Like you can really see the geography of the room. And as the story goes and as the tension builds, you're slowing down, you're coming down, and you're getting more and more personal. There's more and more quick cuts. There's more and more, just like intensity to the whole thing, until you're right at the bottom when the men, because it kind of basically is tracking in a lot of ways Cobb's character, juror number 3, Lee J. Cobb, the guy who's the one who has the problem with his son, and that's why he wants to put this kid. You work your whole life.
Rotten kids, you work your life out.
But because at the end of the movie, he's the one that has this big emotional kind of breakthrough. Right?
No. Not guilty. Not guilty.
Right?
Sure.
And I think that the camera is almost like tracking that kind of sentiment, that kind of the emotionality, I guess maybe you'd call it. And it really just draws you into the story constantly.
Yeah.
Like you're just constantly brought closer in. And it's an incredible way to illustrate tension without action. Because it's literally a movie about 12 men speaking to each other,
Well, yeah, it never does any sort of Dutch angles or slam zooms or anything. It keeps it very simple and balanced. I mean, and I think Sydney Lumet is notorious for this in some of his other films too, but he doesn't really get all that caught up with the technical camera side of things as much. He's very much invested in the characters, the dialogue, and just kind of relying on the strength of them and what they can do on camera. he's pretty dismissive, if anything, of the cameraman himself, who might, to his detriment, probably wanted to do something more interesting in such a tight 16 by 24 room. But
well, it's interesting because I think most of his filmography is definitely it's more like naturalistic. It's more like hanging out. The camera kind of just hangs, right? But this one, it was a little bit of an exception because he did understand intellectually. He was like, this whole movie takes place in one room.
A lot of what we see in 12 Angry Men, and I think embodies Kaufman's style, is in the compositions more than the lighting. When they come into the jury room, which is 6.5 minutes long, it's a high angle across a fan at one end of the room. Jack Warden comes in and he tries to turn on the fan. And then as he walks away, the fan won't turn on. The camera booms down and starts to move down the table. And during the course of the next 5.5 minutes, it moves basically through most of the room back and forth. And we are introduced to different groups of the jurors. And we also get a strong sense right away that Henry Fonda is the one character that seems to be outside. He immediately goes to the window and he stands there. It's an amazing shot. It has very tight compositions. A lot of the moves are not terribly complicated moves, but they're all very meaningful. And I think that shot, even though the mise en scène, the choreography of the actors obviously was something Lumet, created, I think there was a real dialogue between him and Kaufman about how to do that. As we go through the film and we see an increasing use of 2 shots, tightly composed 4 shots, a variety of angles down the length of the table where we see 6 and 8 people stacked up. I think those are really Kaufman's compositions. I mean, Lumet coming out of TV and working on a small screen and working with multiple cameras where you could not get one camera in and get those kind of closely observed shots. And we know from several decades' work that that's exactly the kind of presence that Kaufman created. I think that's very much Kaufman's contribution.
What am I going to do? So they did intense rehearsal.
Yeah.
Where they did all of the blocking for about 2 weeks before they started shooting. And then during the day, they would spend 2 hours just running the lines over and over again and doing the camera moves, like all the setups before they actually executed on them. But I totally agree with you. That is normally how Sydney Lumet is. And it's actually, I would say, one of his strengths as a director.
Yeah.
You watch something like Dog Day Afternoon or
The Wiz.
The Wiz. Well, The Wiz is probably a little bit more technically like, because, it's a musical. But Serpico, Murder on the Orient Express, Network. He's got...
Love Network.
Oh, Network's fantastic. That would be another great one to talk about sometime.
Yeah.
But yeah, he understood, just because of he's making a movie, he's doing it cinematically, and it's interesting, he took some of his cues from the live teleplay version. The live teleplay version, which you can watch if you have, I don't know if it's on the Criterion disc, but I have the Criterion channel, and there was one of the supplements is the 54-minute original broadcast of 12 Angry Men. Because it was interesting. This was born out of a time where they were developing the concept of prestige television and kind of the format of how television went after that. So there was from 8 to 10, you had all your sitcoms. You had I Love Lucy and stuff like that, My Three Sons. And then at 10 o'clock, you would have your drama show. And this was kind of their flagship thing. I want to say it was ABC. It's either ABC or CBS. And that was their flagship thing, doing high live drama. But there was some excellent camera work. I would say it's probably the worst version of 12 Angry Men, just from a performance standpoint, because the performances aren't good, even though there's two of the actors from the teleplay end up in the movie. But some of the camera work, and when you think about 1954, 1955, them executing this live, the way the camera moves around dynamically and floats up, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff in that movie. The use of dissolves, it's very impressive. Yeah. And Sidney Lumet obviously had seen that and knew that he needed to deliver at least something to that effect, right? Where you have to move around the room, you have to make the room a character almost. Mm-hmm. And and it's brilliant in my opinion. Like it makes the movie as strong and as powerful as all the performers are. I mean, this is a murderer's row of character actors. Some of them kind of established. Most of them had careers after this. Like this was kind of a launching pad for a lot of guys, even though this was kind of underseen at the time.
Sure.
But for the critical community and for agents and Hollywood types, like it was something that people noticed. They took notice of.
And this was Sydney Lumet's like debut, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, this is one of his earliest films.
That is a home run if I've ever seen one.
I mean, he was a TV guy.
Yeah.
He was a TV guy, and he had been working in TV, I think, since about 1952.
The biggest difference, and it took me a lot of movies, 5, 6, maybe 7 movies before I really understood it. The biggest difference was the difference in scale. You have to tell a story differently on a 17-inch piece of glass as opposed to a 40-foot image. They say very different things to an audience with different speed. It becomes much clearer sooner when it's bigger. And you have to adjust your storytelling for that. And it is a tremendously difficult adjustment to make because you're used to one kind of dramatic emphasis and you suddenly have to retool completely.
And then he kind of Angry Men, I believe I think it's his feature film debut.
Okay.
And because he does this and then he does a bunch of other television until like 1958. Yeah. He still worked in TV up until like basically the early 60s where he became just a film director.
Yeah.
But Sidney Lumet is really smart. Like he's a really interesting guy to like sit down and like listen to interviews about. Just his insight into the business and the craft and what makes a good story. There's some really interesting interviews. I watched one in particular with him talking about 12 Angry Men and just talking about, just kind of what we've been discussing, the dynamics of like how to make this kind of movie interesting and also understanding the subtext and how to use the tools to utilize the tools to bring out the subtext. So you don't have to be so obvious about it with the script. You know what I mean? Like I really fucking hate when characters speak subtext.
Yes.
Nothing bothers me more. And I will maybe get into this a little bit. Have you ever seen the 97 Friedkin one? The Showtime one?
I watched it in preparation for this as well. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, so did I, because that one, like there's the scene where I think the guy's what's his name? I can't believe I'm blanking on the guy's name. The actor. He plays the fucking, not the racist one. George C. Scott.
Oh yeah.
George C. Scott.
Juror number 3.
When Jack Lemmon talks to him about his son, like they just describe the subtext of what George C. Scott's character is doing.
We let him slip through our fingers!
Slip through our fingers? What are you, his executioner?
I'm one of them.
Maybe you'd like to put the needle in.
For this kid, you bet I would.
God, I'm sorry for you.
Don't start with me now.
Ever since we've walked into this room, you've acted like a self-appointed public avenger.
Shut up.
You want the boy to die for your own personal reasons, not because of the facts.
Where in the 57 original movie, they don't like explicitly talk about it. Like he has this big emotional call out and stuff, the character, juror number 3, but they never like, there's nobody like, hey, having a son is hard. Like we understand, like nobody says shit like that. But in the 97 version, I was like, Friedkin, what are you doing, buddy?
Yeah. Two things. Like, first of all, I hadn't even known William Friedkin was behind that film. He seems to have like really hid this one under his rug or something. But also, you bring up that moment in the original when juror number 3 is breaking down, and I don't know, I'm gonna sound like a little bitch on your podcast, and I apologize, but like it did get a tear jerk out of me this time watching it because
it's incredibly emotional. Yeah,
I just saw a guy who just completely destroyed like maybe what was, given the contents of the film, like the last remnants of what he knows about his son and who he meant to him,
and it's all inferred from the performance.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
He never like says it. Like he says out loud, like, you know, there's little context clues where he's like, I haven't talked to him in 2 years. Then he tells obviously the story about, you know, I saw my son run away from a fight when he was 9, and I was so disgusted I wanted to puke.
When he was 9 years old, he ran away from a fight. I saw it. I was so embarrassed I almost threw up. I said, I'm going to make a man out of you if I have to break you in two trying. Well, I made a man out of him. When he was 16, we had a fight. Hit me in the jaw. He's a big kid. Haven't seen him for 2 years. Kids.
Yeah. And like, you know, and part of his character is coming to the slow realization that this is his fault, that he doesn't have a relationship with his son, and that he's actually might have been a bad father. And it's kind of powerful, you know?
It's an interesting, we might be jumping a little ahead here, but like it does create an interesting dynamic between not only juror number 8 and 3, but also, I mean, I would argue we got two pretty big antagonists here, where it's not just number 3, but number 10. And the differences between those two is that 3 kind of seems to have this more personal connection, given like through the light of his son, I guess, a youthful figure in his life that kind of represents the accused. Whereas juror number 10 is kind of looking at this from like, I guess, like a much more prejudice.
He's racist. He gives like his big racist rant at the end where everybody gets up and turns their back.
Violent! Where are you going? Human life don't mean as much to them as it does to us.
Look, they're lushing it up and fighting all the time, and if somebody gets killed, they don't care. Oh, sure, there's some good things about them, too. Look, I'm the first one to say that. I've known a couple who were okay, but that's the exception, you know what I mean? Most of them, it's like they have no feelings. They can do anything.
It did make me chuckle for a second, because I was just like, this is 1957. There's a couple guys that are like, yeah, that sounds right.
There's a
bunch of white dudes in a room. Like, I'm sure somebody would have agreed with him, but no, I totally agree, because that's part of the texture of the film is like slowly understanding where they're coming from and understanding their biases that inform their opinion on the case, right? Because that's what, you know, Henry Fonda's character, jury number 8, he clearly understands that they have not thought about all of the evidence. They have not thought this through. They're just going based on they just took what the prosecution said as wrote, without ever thinking twice about it, just because of their biases and stuff. And it's about him kind of trying to awaken them a little bit, I suppose, to some of those things. What did you think about Henry Fonda being cast in this movie?
I mean, I think he's pretty good in it. There's this thing, I saw your recent Letterboxd review, because you brought up a slight little thing that irked you, I guess, a little bit about his character. And that's how he I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like that he's kind of like essentially coming in and already shows just from his physical language, just like he's got a little bit of a different point of view maybe from the rest of the room, and he's already like kind of stands out from the crowd.
Well, I think
the way he behaves.
I mean, maybe I wasn't clear on Letterboxd because I rate those on the toilet, but Henry Fonda even at the time was a very well established actor, and he always played very wholesome, good characters. He was in John Ford movies, you know, like he was the young Mr. Lincoln in the late 30s, and then he was also in The Grapes of Wrath in the 40s. So he has had a celebrity persona. So you're automatically on his side. As soon as he opens his mouth, there is no ambiguity to like, is he right? Is he wrong? It just says, at least this is how my effect, being familiar with Henry Fonda, this is how it affected me, was that like, oh, you just automatically give over to Henry Fonda. Because he's such a warm, paternal presence. I know the history of Henry Fonda and all of the other characters he's played. So that definitely informed how I felt about juror number 8, which is something I would say maybe the Friedkin one has like a slight edge. And this is like I said on my Letterboxd thing, it's such a minor complaint. It's not a real complaint. This is me looking for a problem. Like, just, just being, give it a fair critique. But Jack Lemmon plays that character in the 97 version. And I don't really like Jack Lemmon that much. So, like, I was more, like, willing to just be like, oh, maybe he's just an asshole. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, fuck him, right?
Jack Lemmon. Oh, my God. Who doesn't like grumpy old men, huh?
Are you crazy?
Although, Jack Lemmon's, his best performance, my favorite performance is Glenn Ross. Have you ever seen that?
It's been so many years, but I remember it being pretty good.
Come back when now you're a little bit older. Come back and watch it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And he's great in that. He gives a fantastic performance. But yeah, that was like kind of my only criticism in casting is like the meta quality of having Henry Fonda in the role just kind of leads you in a direction. Like you're already on his side. Instead of it being a little bit more ambiguous, even in the original script, there is a sense of ambiguity in it in terms of like whether that kid is innocent or not. That's still like the way the movie ends and the way the script ends is very different. Because the script ends with an empty room and like the camera going up to the knife that's still on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then it kind of fades out to the credits. Just kind of like, did they make the right decision? And also, Lee J. Cobb's character, juror number 3, didn't really buy into it. He just was broken because of the stuff with his son. And he wanted to get out of the room. I guess that's much more explicit in the script. In the movie version, you're made to believe that like, no, he's had a breakthrough. He realizes that he's been being an asshole, or he's
stubborn.
This is all tied up with him and his son, and it's not based on the case at all. He's just, because he's hung up about the respect that kids don't have for their children anymore, or don't have for their parents anymore, rather. But
yeah, and the way it keeps like addressing so many of these like personal issues that any of these guys would have been dealing with in America at the time too. It's done in such a loose manner, but it feels kind of grounded and realistic, and it really does put you in that time without feeling ever too dated at all. Like maybe there's like a couple of lines here and there you could throw out that don't sound of today, but the reason why this even works so well as a teleplay, as a radio play, or works on stage, or in cinema, is just because it is just kind of focused so much on what they're saying and less on what they're doing. And this is like, and I know I'm backtracking a little bit to your first question about what the film kind of means to me and what it reignited in me, but it really kind of is just that love for dialogue. I would just kind of letting characters kind of breathe and speak their mind a little bit. The dialogue is so naturalistic. It really does feel like real people. It doesn't feel like movie dialogue at all. Yeah. Like, you feel like these are real guys having real conversations, and it's a credit to the cast and the interesting faces and the great mix of different types of people. It's a great script. It's a great fucking script. I totally agree with you there. Yeah, 100%. The standout performance for me, actually, and while I do enjoy, I think I would say, arguably Lee J. Cobb takes the cake here for this movie, but for some reason I was really getting invested in Jack Warden, juror number 7.
You know what the soft sell is? Well, you got it. Believe me. I got a different technique. Laughs, drinks, jokes, tricks, Yeah. Hit them where they live. That's my motto. I made 27 grand last year selling marmalade. That's not bad. I mean, considering marmalade. Hey, what are you getting out of this, kicks? Or did somebody bump you on the head one time and you haven't gotten over it?
Maybe.
You do-gooders are all alike. You're always blowing your stacks over some guy that fan. But what are you wasting our time for? Why don't you donate $5 to the cause and maybe it'll make you feel better? This kid is guilty, pal. It's as plain as the nose on your face. So why don't we stop wasting our time here? We're gonna all get sore throats if we keep it up,
What difference does it make if you get it here at the ball game?
No difference, pal. No difference at all.
He was a very, I think, just on a physical level and just kind of like his sort of matter of fact, just kind of like really wants to hit that ball game and just get the hell out of there.
Oh he's great. He's great, and he gives kind of not a thankless performance, but he doesn't get pointed out most of the time, right?
Yeah,
because he really is great in the movie.
Yeah, and the interesting casting too. I thought again, I know we're kind of overlapping with the remake a little bit here. I love George C. Scott in just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was like just post Doctor Strangelove that he's always just getting slumped into grouchy grandpa territory, but he does it so well. Like this is George C. Scott at his George C. Scottiest. I loved every minute of it, and it's very interesting that he filled this role because he's done this before with Lee J. Cobb, because they both played the same lieutenant in Exorcist 1 and 3.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which people forget sometimes, and it's like, oh, were these guys friends? I don't even know.
They probably were. I mean, they're contemporaries. They would have been peers at the time, you know.
Yeah, probably.
I know. Yeah, because it's like once George C. Scott made like there's Doctor Strangelove, but there's also Patton. Patton's the one that was like, then he did that character a lot, like following that. But I mean, even you go to something like, have you ever seen Hardcore, the Paul Schrader film?
Paul Schrader's Hardcore. Yeah.
I mean, that's like a really subtle, nuanced. It's kind of a softer performance for George C. Scott, you know, in a lot of ways. Same thing with he had a few of those like in the '80s. The Changeling.
Changeling.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Like, George C. Scott is just I feel the same way. Like I could just watch that dude read the phone book, for lack of a better way to put it. Like,
yeah,
I just enjoy his presence so much. Like, you know,
he's my favorite Scrooge of the Christmas Carol movies.
Yeah, good call out. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like everybody in this movie, though. It's like so hard to pick out one, because you could watch the movie and just focus on one guy every time you watch it, and probably like come away thinking they have the best performance. I mean, E.G. Marshall as juror number 4, the guy with the glasses, like, you know, the kind of uptight dude. Mm-hmm. He's great too. Martin Balsam just kind of gives like this really, I'm the foreman.
Well, if you want me to tell you how I feel about it, it's all right with me.
Boy, I don't care what you do.
All right, I don't have any...
Like, kind of just like, this has been put upon him kind of attitude. Just trying to wrangle people, just trying to keep everybody calm. You know, which Martin Balsam, you know, great character actor, most famous as the detective in Psycho.
I was gonna say he wasn't anticipating Anthony Perkins to knock him down the stairs.
Everybody's great in this movie, but I totally agree with you. Jack Warden, that's a good call out, because like Jack Warden, I think does not get enough love for this movie. It's so weird, because I know Jack Warden like growing up watching like Problem Child, and then Dirty.
I was gonna say Superman as well. Like I think he's famous for. Or
is he in he's in Superman?
I think he plays the boss at the Daily
Planet. The Daily
Planet. I get mixed up.
He might be. You know, I'm not too familiar with Superman, honestly. I bought the 4K. That was the first time I had ever watched the whole thing, and then I was like, oh, it was fine.
I've been meaning to return to those 4 movies because I watched them as a kid, and then it's just like a far off memory.
Yeah. I was always more of a Batman guy, and my dad, when I was a kid, my dad was like, oh, those Superman movies are stupid. So we just never watched them, you know. But Jack Warden, also, have you ever seen Dirty Work? Norm Macdonald, Artie Lang.
No, I haven't seen this one.
It's like a late 90s comedy, and he's like a dirty old man.
Besides, back then, they didn't have these fancy birth control methods. Like pulling out.
That's another one, like, I just, like, sticks in my mind. Like,
nice. Yeah. That's how I like it.
But and it's a great movie, and like the subtext of the movie is really rich as well, you know, because it's about dignity, it's about the process, the dignity that the process is supposed to afford you, and how easy that can be undermined by apathy and weakness, you know, and that's like kind of the subtext of the conversations they're having, you know, especially like speaking of Jack Warden, when he's confronted by the immigrant guy, what's his name? What juror is he?
He juror number
11.
10? No, 11.
Yeah,
right.
George Voskovec, which was he came from the television production. he confronts them, and he's just like, when he switches sides, he's like,
What kind of a man are you? You have sat here and voted guilty with everyone else because there are some baseball tickets burning a hole in your pocket. And now you have changed your vote because you say you're sick of all the talking here?
Now, listen, buddy.
Who tells you that you have the right to play like this with a man's life? Don't you care?
Now, wait a minute. You can't talk like that to me.
I can talk like that to you. If you want to vote not guilty, then do it because you are convinced the man is not guilty, not because you've had enough. And if you think he is guilty, then vote that way. Or don't you have the guts to do what you think is right?
Now, listen.
Guilty or not guilty?
I told you. Not guilty.
Why?
Look, I don't have to...
You do have to. Say it. Why?
I don't think he's guilty.
all right, I've had enough. Yeah, not guilty. Not guilty. And some of those guys in there have such integrity. They're like, why? Are you actually convinced? Or are you just saying this to get out of the room? Like, what a piece of shit you are. You don't even believe, you don't have any conviction whatsoever.
Well, it's a lot of characters that are just kind of like, that easily just want to conform to the mass mentality and get on with their day. It's rare that we get to see in real life, like people like juror number 8 who just kind of stand their ground and kind of give everybody else in the room any sort of courage, any sense of like, I don't know, just thinking for yourself and maybe just kind of weighing some of these, just some of these circumstances that we've been presented with. Like, obviously we're not getting the whole truth, but we can maybe try and ask questions and try to learn from each other. And you see that too often in their discourse, is how some of them picked up on certain things about certain witnesses or things that characters said in the past that other people missed.
Yeah.
And they kind of have to rely on each other to kind of build on what could have potentially happened, even though, and this is what makes the film so powerful still, is that it's still ambiguous by the end. They could have all just made the worst decision of their lives, but...
Yeah, exactly. But they went through the process, and it's just kind of underlining the importance of that. Like, you have to respect it or it doesn't work. And that's something I think, it's that's why this film persists, in my opinion. As good as the performances are, as good as the dialogue is, as incredible as the craftsmanship is, like, just the kind of the underlying message of the movie is very important. And it's something I think people forget about that process and people that are on trial. People deserve a fair shake, no matter what anybody thinks about them, right?
Yeah.
Like, that kid could have been a piece of shit. And they make the case that the kid was, I know that Henry Fonda tries to add some context. He's like, this kid was abused from the time he was a child and blah, blah, blah. And that, that answers for why, like, he's been kind of a juvenile delinquent all of his life. But, like, you could put that aside and just, like, what if he was just a bad kid? That doesn't mean he killed his father. And that's what this trial is about. This is what this case is about. And it's an important reminder of that. Like, you don't have to like somebody. That does not make them guilty, especially in the days and the age of social media and, like, the way Twitter acts. And
it's a mess.
It's a good message. It's just a good reminder of that. Like, you don't have to like the person on the other side. That doesn't mean they're guilty of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you won't get any, like, counter argument on me that, like, modern discourse that we're kind of living under right now is just kind of like, it's a bit fucked.
Yeah.
Hell, like, you look at not to sway this too much, but, like, if you look at, like, a recent example with that whole shit show with Ethan Klein and Steven Crowder or whatever happened there.
Yeah.
It's all about, it's never really about getting to the truth of the matter or the heart of the matter. It's clout chasing, it's grifting, it's one-upping each other. It seems to be a lot of just trying to play to your base and not have any sort of real integrity or fight behind what you really believe in.
Exactly. They don't have the courage of their convictions. It's not like about what they actually believe or what they actually think is right. It's like you said, it's just too, especially with, like, Ethan Klein specifically, is like, I used to really enjoy H3H3. Like, back when they used to do the reaction videos and stuff like that of just, like, crazy internet shit. and it's just formed into a drama thing where they literally go out and just artificially create drama to talk about. And that was another case of that. I mean, even was it Tarantino was on Joe Rogan the other day, which is interesting that they honed in on the Joe Rogan one because he did a bunch of interviews on a bunch of podcasts. He was on Mark Maron, he was on other ones, but I guess maybe he didn't get into the depth because he talked to Joe Rogan for almost 3 hours, which was cool for me as a fan of Tarantino. But like they're rehashing all of this shit, trying to like cancel him or go after him. Because he's not like, he doesn't say, because he's kind of plain spoken person and he's not like really afraid to just kind of say what he feels.
Yeah.
And they're really going after him. Like the whole Bruce Lee controversy is now back in the news. You're like,
yeah,
because of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, if you don't like how he was portrayed, we can all just go suck a dick,
Yeah.
according to him.
I'm a little hesitant to talk about this because I don't want like this to be the only thing, all right, that people pull from this show. But I figured you were going to bring it up especially because I've heard you guys go back and forth on it in a little bit. I mean, where I'm coming from is I can understand his daughter having a problem with it. It's her fucking father, all right? I get that. But anybody else, go suck a dick.
Well, he's like, I can understand if his daughter was, or his widow was pissed, but like everybody else, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of the perfect answer. I'm glad that he has, throughout that whole process of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because they try to go after him because Margot Robbie didn't have enough lines. You know, they try to go after him for the Bruce Lee thing. They try to go after him for the violence at the end of the movie. And he never apologized. I was like, that's how it's done.
It's fun, Jan.
Oh, I love that interview.
Why the need for so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine
Because
a
it's
little
so
of it?
much fun, Jan. Get
Really?
it?
Oh, really? Okay, I'd like to see you walk down the street and get attacked by some kids who've just seen your
But
movie.
you saw me. See, Jan, you're all messed up because you're talking about real life.
Oh,
and I'm
I see.
talking
And kids
about
at
the
12,
movies. You got to
kids
get
at
it
12.
straight. Now, if you want to talk about the movies, we'll talk about the movies.
Okay, and
If you
kids
want to
at
talk about
12
real
can
life,
tell
we'll
the
talk about real
difference.
life.
I will definitely be cutting that into this. Yeah. Because it's so much fun, Jan. What if kids watch your movies? I think kids would love this movie. It's a perfect movie for kids. They were talking about Kill Bill. Yeah. But yeah, like, and I think I do think at the core of it, at like on a principle value level, like it's really insightful. And it's something worth like remembering about stuff when we're talking, because people try to ruin people over nothing or something they did 10 years ago. I've said this a bunch of times on the regular podcast, but the internet has created this paradigm where everything is static. Everything you've ever done on the internet just happened to whoever just found out about it. So if you did something 10 years ago, you made an off-color joke or whatever, to them, people act like that's still who you are, or you just said that. I think, the thing with Kevin Hart and the Academy Awards, hosting the Academy Awards. And I'm not a big fan of Kevin Hart, but I had respect for him for not really like giving in. He's just like, go fuck yourself then. Then I'm just not going to do it and go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
That was the right answer. To go after a comedian for making an off-color joke 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He's not even just some regular dude. He's a fucking comedian. Like, who makes jokes. And they were like, no, you really meant that. Like, oh, did I? Are you serious?
Yeah. They're just dropping them all like flies one by one. It's like they'll come for you at some point.
Well, because everybody is like Lee J. Cobb. Everybody just has all of this personal bias and animus built up in them, and they project that onto anybody that steps outside of whatever their purview is, their paradigm, their personal ideological perspective.
Yeah.
But.
And it's funny and interesting too to watch them catch themselves in real time too. When they said, "Oh," they hold back for a second and think, "I shouldn't have said that," or "Why did I just totally like gave away everything and just showing off all my vulnerabilities right there." And then, it's like, cause the whole time, even like Henry Fonda, he's being somewhat patient. He's like stern and a little resistant, but he's keeping it relatively calm. He's trying to keep it at least civil. And you know, Lee J. Cobb just goes right in with just the emotional sort of punch to it, saying like, you can't think this way, you can't believe that, there's no proof. And like, well, what proof are you going off of? And he goes, well, it's just the law, you know. You know, it's always a fallback, but
yeah, exactly. And he has those great moments, like you said, those when he realizes he's called himself out by contradicting himself or being hypocritical, like about like, I'll kill him.
What's the matter with you guys? You all know he's guilty. He's got to burn. You're letting him slip through our fingers.
Slip through our fingers? Are you his executioner?
I'm one of them.
Perhaps you'd like to pull the switch.
For this kid, you bet I would.
I feel sorry for you. What it must feel like to want to pull the switch. Ever since you walked into this room, you've been acting like a self-appointed public avenger. You want to see this boy die because you personally want it, not because of the facts. You're a sadist.
Kill him out! Kill him!
You don't really mean you'll kill me, do you?
Yes.
You wouldn't really kill me, would you, sir? Which it made me laugh a little bit. I chuckled a little bit.
But it's also like what happens whenever you are like really losing an argument? You start turning to violence or getting rough. You know, that's kind of what
it turns into ad hominem. Trust me, if anybody has watched or listened to Zoobox, there's plenty of that. Like when you get when you get backed into a corner and you are not willing to move from your position regardless of what is presented to you, that's what you do. You lash out. You know, and also there's another great moment when he's talking about like how the old man isn't reliable.
But I like to find out if an old man who drags 1 foot when he walks because he had a stroke last year can get from his bedroom to his front door in 15 seconds.
He said 20 seconds.
He said 15.
He said 20 seconds. What are you trying to distort?
He said 15.
How does he know how long 15 seconds is? You can't judge a thing like that.
He said 15 seconds. He was very positive about it.
He was an old man. Half the time he was confused. How could he be positive about anything?
Like, I love that moment. Because it's a great moment, and it's a testament also to the performance, but also the camera work. Because the camera's like he's ranting and raving, and the camera's kind of pulling back, and he starts stepping back, and then he turns around as he's saying the final thing, like, "Old man is a fucking idiot. Like, why would you trust an old man?" And then the camera slowly kind of creeps into his face, and he's like, It's just this great, like, aha, oh fuck, damn it.
Yeah, yep. He feels kind of bad, and again, I like that he still has like any essence of humanity to kind of realize that too. Like, this is not a stock, you know, this is just what's so great about the movie too, is that, you know, the stakes are there. You know, these aren't stock characters, they aren't stock hero and villain, they're all just trying to come together on something, maybe sometimes for their own personal gain, but you know, that's why they evolve over the course of the film in pretty much real time for the most part. But as I was saying, like, the stakes are there because, you know, it has to be a unanimous vote between these 12 gentlemen. They, you know, this boy's life is in their hands regardless of what they decide. And on top of that, you've got this looming threat of the heat. And it's causing everybody to kind of get a little stir crazy and wild. And then it gets rainy as well, too. But, I mean, you covered
Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right Thing recently. And that had a similar sort of like...
it does. It has a lot of commonality in that, right? The way that, like, the boiling tensions and the way that heat really causes aggravation and stress, and like it adds to this idea, like, I just want to get out of this room, you know. And I love the use of that in the movie too, because it acts as like act breaks almost.
Yeah,
like them having to react to the weather, first to the heat, then to the rain, and then they realize once it gets late enough, the fan works. Like when things are starting to kind of become more reasonable as the story goes, more and more people are siding with the not guilty side. And things are kind of cooling off. It's really, really, really well done. Because it's all just subtle stuff. It's all these psychological triggers. But it tells you everything you need to know.
Yep.
I love it. Like, it would have been so obnoxious if they were, like, commenting on it all the time. But they just do it through physicality. You know, they're always just, like, you know, wiping sweat away and stuff. Really visceral. Like, really puts you in the room. Because everybody's been hot and uncomfortable.
Sure.
So you can really kind of empathize with those guys in a certain respect. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you really feel like it's another thing that makes you feel like the 13th juror. Like, it really does, because you know what that feels. You have sense memory of that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's a great addition. Yeah.
And even just all the sweat that is just dripping on their faces and then their armpits and whatnot. I mean, I don't know if like at what point when Hollywood decided like, okay, we'll add a little bit of grit here. We got to make it look like it's a little lived in. Obviously, this is the one small little gripe I have is that I don't think the backdrop looks quite good. You can tell it's on like a studio set or whatever, but you do feel just like, as you say, the tension's kind of burning through just like those really egregious temperatures that they could have I don't know. Was it actually really hot when they were filming it, or did they just kind of...
I think there was an element of that, like a stuffiness to it. And like I said, like Sydney, like I know him, Sydney Lumet, like he would make them like pace around the room and stuff in between takes. Okay. Just to kind of keep the energy, keep the heat up, keep the uncomfortable nature, so that everybody was always pacing. He actually even gave an interview where he's like, yeah, I had somebody put a pedometer on me. He's like, I walked 11 miles in one day on set, on that little set, just buzzing around, Yeah.
Because some of that can always be organic too, because I've been on many a sets where it's just like if you have two 4-foot kinos just kind of like blazing at your talent, like already they are sweating up a storm, so it's never comfortable for anybody. But
yeah, exactly 100%. Yeah.
Well, it makes me wonder though if the Friedkin remake did amp up the like literal sweatiness, I guess, of the actors, because if he's gonna go on the Exorcist set and just make it like below -20 or
that would be a very Friedkin thing to do. Yeah, like it would be very Friedkin. Obviously, I mean, he's the guy's a wild man, dude. Like I love Bill Friedkin, dude. Did you watch that documentary? It's just 90 minutes of him talking about making The Exorcist.
Dude, I wish it was longer. It was really good.
Yeah. He is so compelling. I wish somebody would do like a career spanning one like they did for De Palma.
Yeah.
Because I would love to honestly, I'd just love to hear him talk for like 2 hours about like Sorcerer or To Live and Die in L.A. or something like that. Like.
Yeah.
He's so good. I didn't really love his 12 Angry Men, but
yeah.
But he was. I mean, I didn't hate it either. I will say that I didn't hate it either. Like it was fine. It was it was well performed, well executed, but really there was something lost there though. Like, and I think a lot of that is a testament to the Lumet's like camera work, like just the way he designed the blocking. It was way more dynamic in the 57 version than in the 97 version.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the remake had some... To me, overall, it was decent. It was serviceable. The actors... some were some good standouts, but for the most part, we just kind of did their job and were kind of copy and pasting what the original did.
Yeah,
eloquently.
I was watching it. And I was like, oh, I'm surprised because they do change some stuff up, right? Like they made it more contemporary for 1997, but... I thought maybe they would just like kind of do a little bit of more stuff. The only thing they really do that's very different is they give the characters kind of an introduction in the beginning before they all sit down. It's like a 15-minute sequence of them just chatting, which is not really in the Lumet's version. Like it's just pretty much, it gets right down to business. Like it's like you said, it's like I think it's 96 minutes long, which is perfect. Like the older I get, the more I appreciate a good 90-minute movie.
Yeah, that's the one thing that kind of blew me away. Is like, because I remember when I was starting to rewatch it, I was thinking like, man, is it really going to accomplish everything it needs to in this amount of time? And somehow it does. Somebody would look at this with a lower brow and think like, maybe it should be longer, or maybe it should be like an epic. I'm like, no, it knows its scale, it knows what it's working with, and it just knows that is just a perfect place to stop it. And it does it, as I said, mostly in real time. So you are with them and during that duration.
Every version of this has been longer than the last one.
Yeah.
So they have
that's true.
They have the 54 or 55 television one was 54 minutes. They have this one, or the 57 one, 96 minutes. The 97 one, which is about 2 hours, almost exactly 2 hours. And then, I don't know if you've ever seen it, 12, the Russian movie.
Oh, I saw a trailer for this one in preparation, but I didn't watch it.
It is.
Oh.
I have my old DVD that I got from Blockbuster back in the day. It is excellent, but it's about, I think it's almost 3 hours long. Oh yeah, 160 minutes. But it's excellent. It's basically, I mean, 12 is more of like inspired by 12 Angry Men rather than like being a direct adaptation. It's a fucking excellent movie. I would 100% recommend it. If you like 12 Angry Men, definitely watch 12. It's great. It's fantastic. But yeah, when I was like going through doing research and looking at stuff, I was like, that's kind of funny. Like every one is longer than the last one.
Yeah.
Because I felt with the Friedkin one, I felt the length. Like there's just something about it. Like because with the 57 one, it goes by so fast. The pacing is just perfect.
Yeah.
You feel like you're sitting there for a half hour. And then the Friedkin one, I was like really counting the time. I was like, holy shit! I was like, this is going on forever. Maybe it might have been also because I had just watched the original or the 57 version, and that and the story is so much the same exact thing that it's just kind of warmed me a little bit more. Another actor I wanted to point out. I don't know if you're John Fiedler, juror number 2. He's like the kind of the shrimpy dude with the lozenges.
Oh, does anybody want a cough drop?
No.
That is the voice of Piglet from Winnie the Pooh.
Okay, that makes full sense because he's like the most, I don't know, just from how he presents himself, the most innocent, most like.
Hey, you can't talk to me like that, fella. He was great in this as well. Because just like the different guys, like they add just such a texture, and there's always somebody interesting to listen to. Like everybody is interesting in some unique way. They have some sort of idiosyncrasy that makes them just innately compelling. He also was on a television show that I really adored when I was growing up. I used to watch the reruns of it. It's called Kolchak the Night Stalker. He played the coroner. He showed up in a couple episodes.
How much, Gordy?
Not this time. You're always down in the morgue asking special favors.
No, I always pay.
You promise money, but you never come through.
No, you got me mixed up with somebody else. How about $5?
Nope. We morgue attendants are always getting burned by you. We talked it over, and we want a portable TV for when things are slow. Color.
A color television set? Are you out of your mind? I don't have that kind of money.
By the way, that glass peeper belongs to the old man.
Why wasn't it on the autopsy report?
Well, the pathologists don't bother doing full workups with real old people. I mean, everything's wrong with them. Goes in the belongings box.
Listen, Gordy, I've got to get in that box. Now, come on, now, you know I can't afford a television set.
Oh, how much can it cost you?
Well, black and white?
Color.
Black and white.
18-inch screen?
Used.
It's a deal.
As the coroner in that show, and that's Darren McGavin, the guy who was the father in A Christmas Story. It was only for one season. There's like 20 episodes, and it's one of my favorite shows. It's the inspiration for The X-Files, if anybody wants to check it out. I would highly recommend it. There's tons of episodes on YouTube as well. You can go watch them there. But yeah, he was also in that, and I always got a kick out of that because when I was like a little kid, like I was watching reruns of Kolchak on the Sci-Fi Channel, and then when I saw 12 Angry Men, I was like, oh, dude, it's the guy from Kolchak. I didn't even know he was Piglet. I was just like, oh, it's the guy from Kolchak.
It all connects. Although it should be noted that the entire cast of the original film have all been deceased now. It's one of those cases where none of them are around to talk about it anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. Yeah, even Sydney Lumet died in 2011.
Yeah.
His last movie is actually, he's one of these guys who has, which is kind of a rarity in the business. His last movie is great. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
It's on my list. I need to see it. Yeah.
It's Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ethan Hawke. It's a great movie, and he's he kind of harkened back to his 70s stuff, like the Dog Day Afternoon. It's really good. It's like a nice little tight crime thriller.
Okay.
Yeah. Really good.
Yeah, just to quickly go over the remake just a little bit more too. Like there are slight changes that Friedkin kind of does. Like the characteristics of the jurors are
completely different.
Completely different. I think he just kind of does a total 180 with a lot of them. Juror number 10, for instance, I think was a former Nation of Islam member or something.
Yeah.
He goes on an interesting little rant at the end. But
now look, let's talk facts. These people are born to lie. Now that's the way they are, and no intelligent man's gonna tell me otherwise. They don't know what the truth is. You take a look at them. They're different. They think different, they act different, and they don't need some big excuse to kill somebody either. Well, it's true, everybody knows it.
Well, because isn't he the stand-in for the racist guy?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, which was interesting. Like,
is it? I
now,
mean,
if you did that now, it might be controversial.
Yeah.
But back then, they were like, yeah, those guys are weird. We were allowed to say that in 1997. It has James Gandolfini. He was really good, actually.
Suppose you were the one on trial.
Well, I don't do a lot of supposing. No, I'm just a working man. Let my boss do my supposing. But if you want to try one, suppose you talk us all out of this, and that kid really did stick that knife into his father.
Actually, I really liked him in the Friedkin version.
That made reading the letterbox reviews for both of these movies kind of annoying sometimes. Was the remake, you could tell, was usually a bunch of like high school kids saying like, oh yeah, this is great, it's got Tony Soprano, he's on the jury, or something like okay.
Oh my god, I know, dude. Like, everybody's film history knowledge is like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But like, to credit to the remake, it has a fucking great cast. Like, it is a great cast. I think they're just kind of I hate to say this, but I think they're let down by Friedkin a little bit. I think Friedkin did not, like, there's something about that movie that's just, it was a TV movie. It feels like a TV movie. Like, it feels like a TV version of the thing. And also, he brought back William Peterson. Most people would know him from CSI, but he starred in Friedkin's To Live and Die in L.A.
Yep.
And also, he gave Tony Danza from Who's the Boss. Tony Danza. He plays the Jack Warden character.
Yep.
And he was not bad.
Bad news.
What?
You see the weather report? This is the hottest day of the year.
Figures.
You think you could air condition the place, you know? Almost dropped dead in court.
He was all right. I was like, okay, sure.
I kind of liked his class of like, hey, what's going on? Sort of vibe.
Like, Tony Danza, I bet you, like, and I know for some weird reason, I know a little bit about Tony Danza. Like, during the 90s, he was so hard pressed to get away from the sitcom guy thing that, like, yeah, he must have loved doing this.
Sure.
He must have loved it. He's like, oh, I get to actually, like, be in a real thing?
Yeah.
Shit. And Jack Lemmon's okay. Jack Lemmon actually won the Golden Globe for this movie, which I was like, really?
I was going to actually bring that up. Have you seen the video where Ving Rhames gives it to Jack Lemmon? Because originally it was going to Ving Rhames for something else, some other film or TV movie or something.
It was another TV movie, yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess he felt compelled to give it to Jack.
Stanislavski said, love the art in yourself, not yourself in the art. And I love the art in all of you here. And is Mr. Jack Lemmon here? Is he here? Would you please come up here, sir? Come on.
And it's a weird video, first of all, because never have I seen this many celebrities in one room, like, in a long time, like, to that extent. Like, usually it's like a third of that now for the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
But it was surreal, and I don't know, was there some behind the scenes sort of logistics going on there where they convinced him to give it away? But it's like, it's an award show, who cares?
I feel that being an artist is about giving, and I'd like to give this to you, Mr. Jack Lemmon. Sure.
This boy is crazy.
No, I know exactly. Who cares? Especially because it's the Golden Globes, like the one that matters literally the least, because you have to basically pay to get an award. I mean, like, it's crazy, dude. Like, actually, there's a big expose about the Hollywood Foreign Press recently, basically about them just being, like, accepting money and gifts and all this stuff from people. What's Spider-Man? Tobey Maguire got in trouble for that years and years ago. He made a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal called Brothers.
He fucking suffered because of you! And what have you done in my fucking house? And my fucking kids, Grace? You're fucking my brother! You're fucking my brother in my fucking house!
Sam, please.
I love you, Grace!
These are girls, please.
You know how much I love you!
And he was doing
yeah.
And he was doing like an Oscar campaign. And he got in trouble with the Academy because he was giving Academy members like these $5,000 gift bags. And this was before he was nominated. I don't think he actually got nominated. He was just trying to get a nomination. And they were like, that's fraud. Like, or not fraud, but that's bribery. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that movie when it came to, I guess, video and DVD at the time. But just kind of very much of a bland project that we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, a story that we've seen time and time again. Like, oh, the brother is cheating on the other. Yeah, I don't know.
He was trying to capitalize on like the post-Iraq war stuff.
Yeah,
because he's an Iraq vet, and there was a lot of movies like that came out at the time. It was just kind of another one of them. And then it added that extra layer of domestic drama between the two brothers, and I think wasn't it Natalie Portman was in it.
Natalie Portman was there.
Yeah, yeah. I can't believe I even remember that movie, but.
I have a weird, maybe I could be wrong on this, but I have like a vague memory of when the movie Funny People with Adam Sandler making a reference to this film. Not Toy Finger Men, but Brothers, because there's a character in there that was trying to try out for a role, and then he was bummed because Jake Gyllenhaal got the part instead to be in the Tobey Maguire movie. I'm like, oh, that's a weird aside to make, but I laughed.
Tobey Maguire is a weird cat, man. He's like, you know the show Entourage?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of that's based on like the Pussy Posse.
Famously a member of the Pussy Posse.
Yeah, or what channel is this?
Leo DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire, David Blaine, all these guys. Who got the most pussy in the Pussy Posse?
Well, listen. First of all, if I could set that straight, you know, that was there was a New York Magazine article written years ago, and the writer of the magazine coined that phrase.
Got it. You guys didn't coin yourself that.
With my hand on the Bible, I swear to you, never, ever, ever, in any capacity, have myself or any of our friends ever referred to ourselves as the Pussy Posse. This guy wrote it, and it stuck.
Got it.
But the answer is Leo. Right?
And they used to roll around Hollywood, clubbing, drinking, doing drugs, fucking chicks.
I believe it.
Yeah, and that's what Entourage is based on. There's even a whole like arc in Entourage, which for some fucking reason I think I've seen everything but like the last 2 episodes. That's how much I cared about it. I was like, I don't even care to see the end. But anyways, there's an arc where the main character gets cast in Aquaman, and there's a story from Tobey Maguire about like when Spider-Man opened and his experience with that, and he was with the Pussy Posse rolling around with the boys when he found out what the opening weekend was. And that's an Entourage, guys. Just so you all know. That's a deep well here, everybody. That's why you come to Zoobox. For weird non sequiturs about Tobey Maguire. My favorite Spider-Man, by the way.
I hope he writes a book one day.
Just called Toby.
Yeah. I guess he's coming back though to reprise his Spider-Man fame, but I don't know what's going on with that.
You know, I am not on the Marvel train. I've been off the Marvel train for quite some time, but if anybody's going to get me back on it, it's probably Sam Raimi and bringing back Tobey Maguire, even just for nostalgia. Just such a big part of my childhood.
Yeah, we're holding out for that Bruce Campbell cameo that he.
I know. I know. Apparently, Bruce Campbell back when Sam Raimi was doing the proper franchise was supposed to be Mysterio at some point.
Yeah, I would have been so down with that because it would have made sense weirdly with the context of those first 3 movies and just how he's a magician of all characters.
Yeah.
I talk about this with my friends all the time, just like how weird, but how awesome a Spider-Man 4 could have been.
I love it. Like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, obviously like best buddies from way back from high school.
Yeah.
And he does, you know, when Sam Raimi makes it and starts making blockbusters, he gives like Bruce Campbell these walk-on parts. It's like, fuck, you know, like I'm sure most of it's studio stuff. Like, we're not going to let you cast Bruce Campbell in a big part, but wouldn't it have been awesome if he had done like that Oz movie, if Bruce Campbell had played Oz?
Yeah, there you go.
Instead of, what's his name?
James Franco.
James Franco, sex pest extraordinaire, James Franco, because he basically plays the Bruce Campbell character. It would have been really fun if Bruce Campbell just played that character.
I only saw that in theaters when it came out, but he is high off his ass the whole movie, going, "I'm your wizard."
I saw it in the theater when it came out, and then like a couple years ago, I was at like a Goodwill. I saw the Blu-ray there for like $3. I bought it. Even had the digital code in it. I was like, "Oh, cool." And then, so I ended up rewatching it because I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan. Like I grew up watching. There was a period of my life. This might be embarrassing to admit, but my friend Big Paul knows, who's been on a guest on Goes to the Movies a few times. I used to watch Army of Darkness every Friday night for like 2 years. I was a very cool kid. I was very cool. Like, what are you doing, Shaun? Watching Army of Darkness. What are you doing?
And here you are now.
Here I am now. 337 subs strong. Yeah, but the freaking one though, you could pass it. You don't need to watch it.
Sure.
This was the first time I had ever seen it, honestly. I don't know why. I'm being such a freak, but like you said, like I didn't even know Friedkin had directed this. I didn't even know. I had no idea. Completely washed over me. But back to the classic film.
Did you notice this in the classic film? How we really did see how all these characters sort of developed and kind of changed their opinion over the course in a very tasteful manner in how it was paced. But juror number 1, or I guess as he's known as the foreman, he kind of just makes the switch very quickly, and it goes under everybody's noses. He doesn't even get questioned for his reasoning. Maybe that was intentional. I don't know.
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, because he's the one that, like, because he holds out for about half the movie.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's just on the other side. Well, because he's kind of like, almost in a weird way, like the audience avatar. Like, you know, like you want, like as an audience member, you want them to work out their problems, just like he does. And he's like open to the information, like hopefully you'll be open to the information. But I agree. Like he's never questioned about it. It's never brought up like it is with Jack Warden. But like, oh, I don't know. Martin Balsam's awesome.
He's good. No, I mean he's an actor.
No, but I agree with you. Like the way that all the characters turn is very naturalistic, and it makes sense. Like it snaps into your head, and you're like, oh, okay. Because there's always a sequence. There's always a moment where they have that aha. Oh, okay. One of my favorite turns is E.G. Marshall, juror number 4, when the old man is talking to him about the Joseph Sweeney is talking to him about the glasses, the mark on the bridge of his nose.
The woman who testified that she saw the killing had those same marks on the sides of her nose.
Holy smokes, you know he's right.
Just give me a minute, and I'll be finished. I don't know if anyone else noticed that about her. I didn't think of it then, but I've been going over her face in my mind. She had those same marks. She kept rubbing them in court.
He's right. Now, she did do that a lot.
This woman was about 45 years old. She's making a tremendous effort to look 35 for her first public appearance. Heavy makeup, dyed hair, brand new clothes that should have been worn by a younger woman. No glasses. Well, women do that. See if you can get a mental picture of it.
What do you mean, no glasses? How do you know whether she wore glasses? Just because she was rubbing her nose?
Now, she had those marks. I saw them.
Well, so what? What do you think that means?
Listen, I'm getting so sick of your yelling in here.
Come on, forget it. Cut it.
Hey, listen, he's right. I saw them too. I was the closest one to her. She had these things in the side of her nose. What do you call those on the side?
Well, what point are you making here? She had dyed hair, marks on her nose. Well, what does that mean?
Could those marks be made by anything other than eyeglasses?
No, they couldn't.
Yep.
And I love it. And it's also the one time in the movie, you know, somebody even asked them early on, there's a beautiful setup. They're like, don't you sweat? Do you ever sweat?
Yeah, yep.
He's like, no. And then when he has that moment, when he realizes what he's saying, the conclusion he's coming to, there's a big bead of sweat rolling down the side of his head. It's like a nice little subtle touch,
Yeah, that speaks a lot to just the nuances when there is kind of downtime, whether they're taking a quick break in the bathroom or if they're just kind of sitting it out waiting on a vote. I mean, there's like moments where which juror is the sales guy?
Jack Warden.
No, I'm thinking of, maybe it's not sales. What was the other guy?
Klugman, Jack Klugman, juror number 5.
Number 5, maybe. Yeah, it might have been him. There's like a small little tidbit where he's just kind of like puffing smoke rings, just kind of like in the background.
Oh,
like,
no, you're talking about, I think, Robert Weber.
That's okay. That's right.
Juror number 12, he's like the youngest guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, you have to give, like, because you are kind of confined to this space with little props and things to do, you have to really kind of give your characters some sort of tick or nuance to kind of.
But it doesn't draw attention to it, though. Like, that's what I love about it. And this is another criticism I have of the Friedkin version. William Peterson is the stand-in for that guy.
Yep.
And he's like in the Friedkin version, he's a salesman. That's probably why
That's right. I got mixed up.
You made that connection. He's literally doodling on a pad, and they talk to him about it for a minute. You're like, you don't need to talk. You don't need to tell. I see what he's doing. Like, you don't need to tell me that he's like kind of distracted or doesn't really care. He's indifferent about it. Like, that's what I love about the 57 version. It's all there if you're paying attention.
Yep.
It's all there. All the character work is there.
It's natural.
Because it's like a stage play. Whereas like when you do a play, you're always on stage, no matter if the focus of the scene is on you or not. So you are still performing. You're still being your character. And that's what these guys were doing, right? They're all still physically embodying their characters, even when attention is not on them. And I really love that,
Yeah.
Even when they're out of focus. Like, there's another moment when we talked about it a little bit. Lee J. Cobb brings up the fact that you can't trust the memory of an old man. When the camera zooms into him a little bit, they frame just in the corner Joseph Sweeney, the old man. And he's out of focus, and he's just like, what are you saying? It's great. It's such it's such intelligent, just thoughtful filmmaking and performances as well. I mean, like I said, it's like a movie you walk away from and you really think like this is like a perfect movie. It's a perfectly executed movie.
It left me breathless.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't say that very often about like classic films. I know I typically get more into the cult, grungy exploitation movies that I love so much. But like, once in a while, you leave a movie like this and you just feel like, wow, that was just solid. That was perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I have had the same trajectory in my life where I was like really into genre stuff, like kind of exclusively. I always like would watch anything, but I focus more on genre stuff. But it's so important, especially as like a young filmmaker like yourself. It's so important to go watch these movies because the fundamentals are there, and you can take these fundamentals and you can bring it and use these tools in anything, right? In any genre, anything you want to touch, any type of story you want to tell. This is just like basic infrastructure stuff that you can really learn from these things. And I was, like you said, I was breathless too. Like I watched it Tuesday night, and as soon as the movie was over, I was sitting there, and my wife was with me, and I just was like, just kind of stunned. I was like, what a good fucking movie. Like, that's just like your immediate reaction is like, what a great movie. What a great fucking movie. Like, and it feels so good as a film fan to watch something and have no misgivings about it.
Yeah.
You just completely are taken over by it and just completely like appreciate and respect it. It just completely executes on its premise perfectly. It's always such a joy when you can experience that, and it's because it's very rare.
Yes, and there's a reason why all of our dads, love this movie, and how that transcends, and yeah, I mean, I did want to say, like, there was one thing I did want to bring up. I'm just checking my notes here real quick.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
not to cut the tone here, but yeah, I have never done jury duty. I don't know if you have it or not.
No, I never have. No.
It is. I do think it is very unrealistic. Not that this is not a disservice at all to the film itself. It works in the context of the film, but I think I actually find it very funny that Henry Fonda kind of breaks a couple of rules here, goes to the scene of the crime, even
Yeah.
buys a weapon that's identical to the evidence, and brings it to the courthouse in 1957, where I guess there aren't any scanners to make sure you're not bringing in a weapon.
Actually, I made a note of that as well, but I was like, well, maybe it's 1957. It's not like the same, like, the context is different than like the 90s. Because I think a lot of people know about like jurors because of like the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah.
or the more recent stuff like the Chauvin jurors and stuff like that. Like those people were supposed to be like really intensely sequestered, especially if the O.J. Simpson trial, which is probably one of America's biggest high profile cases ever.
Yeah.
In terms of popular media, like those people were literally locked in a fucking hotel for however long the trial was for. It was like 9 months or something. Sure. Like crazy shit. But yeah, I bet you it was probably a little looser back then. Although I did like the little touch at the end where they didn't know any of each other's names.
Yes.
And then at the end, Joseph Sweeney walks up to Henry Fonda.
What's your name?
Davis.
My name's McCardle. Well, so long.
So long.
He's like, "What's your name?"
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a testament to how much it breaks so many screenwriting rules too, and still gets away with it. Like you don't just start off your movie and throw like 12 characters at somebody so fast and just expect them to just get up to speed, but it paces itself naturally that you just introduce yourself to them as the course of the film as it runs its course, obviously. But then also, all the characters have the same name apart from a number that separates them.
Well, because and this is a testament to the casting. Like you don't need their names.
Exactly.
You just know. You just intuitively like identify them. You know, which is great. And just another like aspect of just like it reminded me. You know what this actually reminded me of, which may seem like a weird thing to bring up, which John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes.
Because I remember, and if people out there, you should listen to the John Carpenter and Kurt Russell audio commentary for The Thing. It's one of the all-time great audio commentaries. It's a very fun audio commentary. But he's talking. It's the scene when they're all around the autopsy table. It's like before, the big scene with the defibrillators and the guy gets his arms ripped off and stuff. He was just like, this was a bitch to cover. Like you have like 10 guys in a room standing around a table. Like planning out coverage for something like that is so difficult to make sure that the audience is going to be able to read what is going on. And when I was watching this, it totally reminded me of that. Cause like just going back to the craftsmanship, like the coverage is perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's innovative as well. Like I said, like there's a lot of time spent on reactions. You hear somebody talking off camera and it's just on somebody's face listening. Yep. Because and that also leads into like kind of the subtext, the meta quality of them being convinced of something. And that is, and they have these performers that completely deliver on that as well. Just showing these small, subtle nuances in their facial tics and what they do as performers. It's really impressive. It's like really impressive.
It makes me wonder if they could even tackle this story again in modern day now. Like, can you imagine another 12 Angry Men, or would it not be, I guess, progressive enough anymore? Maybe, I don't know.
I think now, if they did it now, it might be a woke nightmare.
12 Angry Women.
Yeah, actually, probably yes. Actually, probably, and it would be like the Harvey Weinstein case or something, or somebody. Oh, well, actually, you could, in theory, you could make an incredibly interesting modern update of this. Sure. I would say that 12, the Russian film, because that's from I think like 2007, 2008 maybe. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good job of doing that, but you have to put it in the context of Russia. It's just like a different cultural thing that we have over here. Yeah, but it would be. I think if somebody tried to do this today, it would be a woke nightmare. Like, imagine if there's like a racist juror in 2021. There would have to be a whole speech of somebody standing up and condemning him, and instead of just subtly the beautiful way they do in this movie, everybody just gets up and just turns their back on him. Nothing else needs to be said. No grandstanding. Nothing like that. It's just like perfectly communicated. They don't agree with this. They think this is wrong without having to utter a word. But nowadays, you know, it would be just like somebody like yelling at that guy. It would be like the Oscar clip. It would be Whoopi Goldberg yelling at some old racist lady, a Karen, if you will.
I was gonna say I feel like I want to write like an all-inclusive remake of this, where they're channeling the Bill Cosby recent.
Holy shit. But the only way it would be compelling nowadays if they had like an intense sexual assault case that they were jurors for and he was innocent. That's the only way it would be even remotely interesting, and they would never do that. I don't think that would pass muster for a lot of what's going on in Hollywood. Just the blandness of Hollywood right now. There's no stakes. Everything is so ephemeral and forgettable. You can't be edgy at all. And, you know, to be edgy is not just like to make like racist jokes or whatever. It's like, no, like there's just material that you need to represent on screen to like have these conversations in any real way. And nowadays they're just like, nope, you can't even represent it. You can't represent a bad worldview, even if other people disagree with it. Because nowadays, I've said this before, I think on other podcasts, but it's just like, nowadays, people need to feel like they're doing something virtuous by buying a ticket to a movie. You know what I mean? It's like a statement now, rather than just like going to enjoy a story.
Yeah.
And it's really bizarre. It's like a political statement now. Like and that's why we are in the place we are. It's just a lot of blandness out there. No risks. Nobody's taking risks anymore, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of us trying to point out that, hey guys, theaters are back. You know, we're going to do our part to buy a ticket and go see a movie. But at the same time, it's like, what's even coming out now that's even good?
Dude,
I saw the new Conjuring film, and it was just like, this was bland, this was boring.
Yep. I totally agree.
What were we expecting? Yeah.
I was just like, you know, I like the other two Conjuring movies well enough. I'm not like a huge Conjuring series fan or anything, but I was at least hoping it would rise to the level of like moderately entertaining, and I was just like bored. I was just so bored by that movie.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. Like, because I've been like scouring. I'm like, because I live in South Carolina, so theaters have been open a little bit longer. I don't know how it's pretty much since like last August they've been open. Some of them have been open. Some of them have been open.
But theaters here in Virginia have been open technically since. I mean, I saw Tenet last year on IMAX.
Yeah,
so
me
I guess
too. Yeah.
So
yeah, well, I have a Regal near where I live, and then I have like a local like Georgia Theater Company theater. It's like a local chain. And I saw Tenet at Regal, and then I was going to watch all of their retro screenings. I actually saw Inception in IMAX for like $5. It was amazing. And then they closed, but the Georgia Theater Company was open. And they were doing all these retro screenings. Like I got to see The Thing, I got to see Citizen Kane. Like it was awesome.
The Thing on any big screen, like worth it a ton. I mean, I'm glad that you and I kind of can have similar anecdotes there. Seeing it in the drive-in, I thought it was I don't know, blew my mind.
Yeah, it's cool. It's actually, I have a drive-in that's like 45 minutes, an hour away from me, and it's so hard to get over there. But they've been doing these really cool things because of the lack of released movies, where they've been doing interesting pairings. So they did like A Quiet Place 2, and then they did War of the Worlds. I was like, oh, that would have been awesome to go see in the drive. I would have loved to have seen like the old 1950s War of the Worlds in a drive-in. Unfortunately, didn't get a chance to go. But now that theaters are officially open, like widespread, like now the local theaters and stuff, they stop playing older movies. Now it's just like, oh, now we have Fast 9 playing on 10 screens. I'm just like, oh, fucking kill me. Kill me, dude. I was so stoked. I was so excited. I was like watching like Tremors on the big screen and The Thing and Citizen Kane and It's a Wonderful Life. And
now it's just John Cena speaking Mandarin.
我爱更尊重中国更中国人，我很抱歉对我的错误。
I hope that plays in the beginning of the film. They should have that as like back in the day they used to have like an old like cartoon or something. Just show that John Cena thing, which is one of the most depressing and hilarious things I've ever seen.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine having to do that, dude. Imagine it. Just fucking imagine it. Oh my god.
Nightmare fuel.
Nightmare. I bet they don't like 12 Angry Men over in China, everybody. But yeah, like 12 Angry Men, that would have been another. If I ever see this, a revival screening or something, I'll totally go. 100%.
Oh yeah. Yep.
100%. Just to see those big, interesting faces like on the screen like that. Holy shit. That'd be awesome.
Oh, one thing we didn't bring up at all yet, the lack of score with 12 Angry Men. Like, this is pretty much a musicless
except
movie.
for the beginning and the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the bookends, yeah.
And yeah, definitely to its credit, like, it only helps and elevates just the situation at hand because it's not doing this schmaltzy, cheesy. This is my problem with a lot of Spielberg movies is that, like, he never knows when to tell John Williams to say, like, dude, we don't need the horns in this scene, Yeah.
Well, because it's emotional manipulation, right? Like, so
exactly.
And Spielberg is about the schmaltz. He's about this, like, making you feel warm inside. Feel the moment. Feel the moment. Here, they want you to sit with the words. They want you to sit with the situation. And also just the great sound design of the chairs shuffling and guys being fidgety and ripping paper and and then also, when the rain comes and you have that pitter patter of the rain in the background for like the second half of the movie, it creates an atmosphere. And you don't need I'm sure there's a version of this that somebody would do with the score, but I'm so happy they didn't. Just because of what you said, like it would be cheap. It would be cheap to what the goals of the movie are. In the same way that, like, when you watch horror movies, especially, right? Like, there's so much cheap use of music in horror movies. It's artificially creating dread or a scare or something like that. And I think it's just a testament to the actors, actually, and the sound design, that they didn't need it. They don't need it. It's like, you get it, like, and you're totally invested. You're completely engrossed in it without needing that, like, Hollywoodization of it,
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you. And I like Spielberg. Don't get me wrong. Plenty of Spielberg movies I really enjoy. But I agree. Yes. Like, he does not know when to stop. Except I think maybe Schindler's List. Schindler's List. And it's probably for the same reason, right? Like, he wants you to really feel the impact of the moment. So he uses the sound design to accomplish that.
I'd say that. I mean, maybe even Munich or something, but it depends.
Yeah, and probably Munich too. Yeah. But anything else, not so much. Very heavy-handed with that stuff, yeah.
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 What else can we say about 12 Angry Men that we haven't already said? I mean, are there any other small little issues you may take with? I mean, I think we can only nitpick over the smallest of things. Like, maybe you don't have to call us 12 Angry Men, and it's really just 9 men who are angry, and like 3 of them are just pretty chill for the most part. I don't know.
It's not.
You're reaching at straws.
I love it. Actually, one of the things I do love is the marketing of the movie. It's like, it explodes like 12 sticks of dynamite. It's like crushing drama coming for you. Like, I was watching some of the old trailers. It was really funny. Like, just because when you watch the movie, you're like, well, it's not that movie. It's not like the most exciting thing you've ever seen, the most intense thing you've ever seen. No, it's just like a quiet little character drama about guys trying to work out their differences and work through solve a problem together, and how difficult that can be. It's very low key. It's a very low key movie.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to see a situation where Henry Fonda just has like a grenade, like, I'm ready to blow the shit up if it comes to it.
Yeah, he just like, actually, it would be the scene when they're doing the first vote, when he's just like, when he says, he's like, do a vote, and if nobody else says not guilty, I'll go along. And he goes over to the bathroom sink, and he's just kind of waiting. And it would be funny if he just like had a grenade and he pulled it out and he had it in his teeth, waiting to see what the vote would be. Yeah, it's a listen. Go watch 12 Angry Men, everybody. Like, you owe it to yourself to see this movie at least once in your goddamn life. And do it.
I mean, there's a reason why this film is like used as a centerpiece example and in law schools, in business schools, or just in most public schools even. The art of the argument is there as well. We didn't really touch on that too much, but it's breaking down how two people or many people can cumulatively come to some sort of decision.
Yeah.
And it's not about really necessarily the right or wrong of their decision, but more just how it's the method and the means, and just that yearning for any sort of kind of more civil discussion and questioning things that are out of our control or out of hand for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
like a conversation about like your personal biases versus what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
In service, I think we touched on it a little bit. We just didn't explicitly call it that, but about the idea that you have to separate yourself in these situations. And that's kind of the process that all of the men go through, because some of them think that they are being impartial, only to come to realize that maybe they're not,
Sure.
And, Lee J. Cobb obviously being the big centerpiece, the big emotional centerpiece of the movie, the angry man.
Yep.
That's way more explicit and explosive, but everybody has their kind of turn. Everybody gets that moment. Mm-hmm. There's no stone left unturned, I think, emotionally in the context of the characters that we've been presented with,
Yeah.
Everything completely logically makes sense, and it's a joy to watch. It's like a joy to watch everybody turn their opinions based on the actual evidence and working through it and thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just taking something as given. And it's like I said before, I think that's why the film persists. I think it's the performances, it's the naturalistic dialogue, it's the craftsmanship that you don't notice unless you're paying attention, but it's also just that fundamental message about the importance of serving the process and how fundamental that is to the fabric of our country, basically, and about how we work. That's one of the things that's unique about our country, is that we have this opportunity as an accused person. We get to go through this process. So I think that's why I dare I say an important film in some respect.
No, that's probably the best way to put it. And it's just, as you say, it opens up. I mean, as this country is built upon, it opens up so much to learn from one another. I mean, that's kind of, in a weird way, sort of the end goal amongst these 12 guys is just, they're all strangers, and then they kind of left. Well, it's like you think of the prospect of when they all have to go back home to their wives or whatever, and they ask, "Oh, honey, how was your day?" Like, well, let me tell you, we I learned a lot today.
Yeah, I want to see the sequel. 12 men went home. But yeah, no, it's a great movie, and thank you so much for suggesting it. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed revisiting this movie. Any excuse to watch something like this is a good excuse, in my opinion. It's just so great.
It was a good break from Ravenous for me, which is more up my alley. But it's like I need, as you say too, we gotta just find a good balance and not just get so hung up on just the more eclectic kinds of movies that
exactly. But it's also it's a cool thing because you can watch a lot of the people that we really love, like John Carpenter, right? John Carpenter was a giant fan of John Ford and Howard Hawks. They weren't making crazy genre movies. Well, Howard Hawks made the Thing from Another World, which is The Thing is based on. But most of the time they're doing dramas, screwball comedies, westerns, just a lot to be learned that you can take those tools. Mm-hmm. And you can tell any story, and it's only going to make you a better filmmaker, a better storyteller. I think people have some sort of weird apprehension about, I don't know what it is. I don't know. There's so many people that I see on film Twitter or even on Letterboxd. There's just this weird ignorance, and it's but they're so self-righteous about it. It's not even that they're oh, I have a lot to learn. I got a lot to learn. I haven't seen everything. They don't even have that perspective. It's very didactic, and I just can't fucking stand it.
That was something I noticed on Letterboxd too for the original 12 Angry Men, was that it was getting high amounts of praise, but there was those occasional reviews that I would notice put a little disclaimer at the beginning or the end saying, even though it's black and white, it's not boring. Trust me. I'm like, why does that even constitute if it's boring or not? Like, I mean, you could say that about any movie, just depending on what your taste is. This whole idea that like just a film from the 50s, runs that risk.
That's the argument of a 12-year-old. Like
Exactly.
when you're 12 years old, you're like, I don't want to watch an old movie. I want to watch put on Indiana Jones. But as an adult, if you're past 20 years old and you consider yourself a fan of film, a cinema fan, and those words come out of your mouth, then you're an interloper and you're a liar. And I have no respect for you. No,
set your priorities straight.
Well,
damn it.
Exactly. It's just there's such a beautiful breadth of the art out there. Like, why would you limit yourself just to something that you think you only like one thing? And it's just like, that's not true. I guarantee you, a good movie is a good movie. It doesn't matter even what it's about. A well-told story is a well-told story. There's plenty of romantic comedies I like. There's plenty of dramas that I really love and appreciate. And I just don't. Why limit yourself?
Yeah, explore. Yeah, there's so much good stuff out there. You and I are both very, very big on just especially when cinema today just seems to be a little bit of a lost cause. There's so much in the past that you can really check out, and you'll find something new every time.
Exactly, 100%. But thanks so much for talking to me about this, Jeremy. And you want to plug your stuff where people can find you?
Yeah, so I know I'm kind of new on the ZooBox end of things, but you can find me at Jeramobi. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, where I am the host of the show, Fleapit After Dark, which Shaun has been on before. Mm-hmm. I've had some other guests on there too, and hope to dish out more episodes there. And then I'm also on Letterboxd, surviving.
Yeah. I use Letterboxd almost exclusively for posterity. It's just to keep track of what I've watched and then put a little thought. When I first found out about Letterboxd, I was like, this is so cool. This is so awesome. I came to it kind of late. I was only 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like a social media for film fans. And then you watch it and it's just or not watch it. Then you look through it and you're just like, this is just as awful as anything else.
Yeah.
And there's always there's 10 assholes that write on there that are just the most popular people on there, and they don't write anything very insightful. And I found on Letterboxd the most effective method is to, if you're going to write a review, 300 words and be snarky.
Yes. just I've been trolling at this point. It's not even worth the effort to get through to some people on there.
Yeah, because I tried to for a while. I was go on other people's reviews, oh, this is a great review. Do you ever think about this? And sometimes you get some interaction, but most of the time, no.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I like it for its utility for how many movies have I watched this year? Which sometimes is a little scary for me. But I'm like, Christ, I got to get it's my hobby. I was going to say I got to get a new hobby, but no, I'm good. I'm 34 years old. I'm good with just being a fucking dad that watches movies in his free time. I'm not out at the bars anymore. I'm not doing that shit. So, but
yeah, it's a platform that definitely helps the noggin.
100%. I would just wish it was more there was more of a sense of discovery about it, and I learned things from it, and I don't. It's a bummer. It's a bummer in that respect, but yeah, everybody, if you want to know more about ZooBox, you like ZooBox, you like what you heard here, go check out Jeremy. Also, there'll be links to his stuff in the description, and also everything ZooBox. All of our ZooBox stuff will be in the description. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, my brother Dan is on Twitter. You can come follow us there. I'm basically on Twitter. I just almost exclusively talk about movies and stuff for the most part. And there's some cool people on Twitter, actually. Like you being one of them, right? That's kind of how we met, I suppose, right?
I guess so. But thank you. Yeah, thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, no, it must have been Twitter. But anyways.
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Adios, guys.
Take care.